Hey, everybody. Greetings once again from Christ Church, Missoula. This is Pastor Flynn with our weekly meditation. Time it's from John chapter 10, verses 14 through 15, as we continue our work through the doctrines of grace, or the 5 points of Calvinism, or TULIP. John 10, verses 14 through 15 says this: I am the good shepherd, and I know my sheep, and am known by my own. As the Father knows me, even so I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. Well, another doctrine that developed over the 80 years or so of the Reformation before Arminius that he didn't like was what eventually became known as the L in TULIP, limited atonement. This is the doctrine that Jesus died only for those whom he intended to save. Jesus laid down his life for the sheep, and the sheep only, not the goats. It also means that Jesus, in this doctrine, it also means that Jesus was 100% successful in securing the salvation of all the elect. None were lost. This is reflected in verses like John 17:9, where Jesus in the high priestly prayer is telling the Father, I pray for them, his disciples, his sheep. I do not pray for the world, but for those whom you have given me, for they are yours. Jesus doesn't pray for the goats, but the sheep. He doesn't intercede for the goats. He intercedes for the sheep who have been given to him by the Father. Back in the Good Shepherd passage in John chapter 10, a few verses later, verse 29 and 30, Jesus says, no one is able to snatch them, that is the sheep, out of my Father's hand. I and my Father are one. It was successful. He will not fail. Or Titus 2:14, where it says, Jesus, who gave himself for us, that he might redeem us from every lawless deed and purify for himself his own special people. Jesus didn't fail to save anyone. In the same spirit as his previous objections, Arminius charges God with being unjust if this doctrine is true. So Arminius taught that Jesus made it possible for everyone to be saved, but secured the salvation of no one. Jesus opened the door to salvation, but you have to walk through. You have to accept it. Well, one significant error with this teaching is that if Jesus only opened the door for salvation, but didn't actually save anyone, then there was the possibility that no one would be saved. Jesus opened the door and no one walked through. Ironically, Arminius was uncomfortable with God choosing to save some people and choosing not to save others, but was totally fine with the thought that Jesus possibly would have saved no one. Another significant error with this thinking, Arminius' teaching, is that it does mean that Jesus failed to save some people. He actually failed to save people that he intended to save. He paid the price. He paid their price. He atoned for their sins. He satisfied the wrath of God, but they will still suffer the eternal wrath of God and pay for their sins for all eternity anyway. His sacrifice was not powerful enough to overcome the sins of some people. He gave it his best shot, but some people are just too sinful. This is, of course, totally inconsistent with the scriptural witness to the effectiveness of the atonement, and you can read all of the book of Hebrews to find out about that, but especially Hebrews chapter 9, verses 11 through 15. But it also goes against the very concept of election. It's clear, it's big E on the eye chart in the scripture that some were chosen. Limited atonement means Jesus limited his atonement to his elect, not that it was limited in power. For Arminius, Jesus' atonement was limited in power. He was not able to save some people that he wanted to save. Now, the word limited can cause confusion, so it has become popular for some Reformed theologians to refer to the term particular redemption instead of limited atonement. But that would make TULIP TUPIP. So I think we'll stick with limited atonement. Well, in addition to John chapter 10, verses 14 through 15, one of my favorite verses that simply conveys this doctrine is Jesus in Jesus's birth in Matthew chapter 1, verse 21. When the angel Gabriel declares to Joseph concerning Mary, he says, "And she will bring forth a son, and you will call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins." Jesus came to save his people from their sins. He died for the sheep who were given to him by his Father, and he didn't fail to save one of them. Once again, what an amazing and an encouraging piece of good news this is for us as Christians. The doctrines of grace are amazing good news and wonderful assurance that we are his own sheep and no one can snatch us out of his hand. Well, again, thanks for listening. And until next time, fight the good fight. His mercy endures forever.